My name's Tony. I just am very happy that you've all come along tonight. This is my wife Pip. We've been selling real estate on the North Shore here since 1998. In fact, today must be fairly close to our 19th year selling houses on here on the North Shore, which is really great. This kind of exercise tonight came out of Pip and I really just having a look at our own lives, maybe in about 2008. If you might remember, the global financial crisis hit and real estate was a bit tough, and that year we also had we had a few tragedies in our own family lives. So we had friends and family pass away, and it wasn't a great year for us. And by the time we got to the end of 2008, we'd had enough. And we decided to leave Auckland and shot down to Lake Wanaka, which is kind of where my heart is. My home is in South Canterbury, and we started messing around down in Wanaka, and we were down there for about 8 months. And one of the things that I found out about Wanaka is that Wanaka is actually more expensive than Auckland. I don't know if you know that, but we managed to chew through a fair pile of money and had a great time. We did a lot of cycling, we did skiing and fooled around. It was just really unplanned, and about halfway through the year I realised that if we stayed there I'd have no money. So we came back to Auckland and got back into Harcourts and started selling again. I was fortunate, I still had a business and we still had a rental property up here. So, which was all great. But today I'm finding that not all my clients, but a substantial number of my clients are now doing the same thing that we thought we might do 10 years ago. And about 30% of my clients are disappearing and they're heading down to places like the Coromandel. Quite a few go north to Matakana and up to Mangawai and all over the place. About 30% are moving into community kind of living, so that's whether it's a retirement village, sometimes it's into apartments, generally that kind of situation. Most of them are in this area, and we've got about 20% that are upgrading and moving into better homes than the ones that they're in now, so they're still upwardly mobile, if you like. But 60% are kind of doing something else, and I wanted to find out what that was, so we trundled off. You'll realise that 30 plus 30 plus 20 is not 100%. There's another 20% of our clients that go to a better place, and so I've got other reasons to sell houses, but those are the positive ones. So we wanted to find out what our clients were up to. What we found was that very, very few were actually retiring. Most of them are avoiding retirement, and it was something that they wanted to not do. They were right-sizing their life. They were changing what they did, and if they stayed doing the same thing, they changed how they did it. They're kind of, in a sense, they're sort of reducing their expenses and their footprint on the world. Maybe they're repurposing, they're reusing their skills and changing their lives that way, and they're recycling the equity that's tied up in their houses here in Auckland to do it. They're doing it because they want more health, they're doing it because they want to get more wealth, and they're doing it because they want to get more time. So we should have a look at some examples. This is a home that's just up the road here in Beach Road. Paul and Sandra, they bought this house off me. They came to me about a year after buying it and said, we want to sell. So they sold their house. Now, in a sense, they had good corporate jobs. Both of them were working, had great careers. And the home that they owned was really an aspirational home in this area. It's a beautiful home in Castor Bay. What they did was they got rid of their corporate job and they got rid of their beautiful home, which we sold last year, and have moved to Whangamata. This is the home they bought, less than half the price of the house that they sold here. You can see that they're about maybe 100 metres to the beach, and they spend their time walking up and down the beach. I went for a walk with them last week. Everybody knows everybody down there, so we're all talking to each other. It was really great. They still have a bolt hole here in Auckland. They want to have a home here that they use as somewhere to be when they're in Auckland. The main thing that he did was when he went to Whangamata was to buy a business, but let's see what he has to say.
Decided to make a move to Whangamata because our kids are all grown up and it was time to do something a little bit different.
Sure.
And we saw an opportunity here, so moved out of the big smoke down to Whangamata. It's pretty quiet this time of year in the winter, but it gets a lot busier in the summer, so there's quite a good mix of things to do, and yeah, we're really enjoying our change. We did get a good price for our property, so the idea was that we would sell up, buy a business, and sort of make a change of lifestyle. So we were able to do that with the proceeds of our property in Auckland. So it's worked out really well for us. Got rid of our mortgage, got a nice little business running down here, and got this house that we live in. So life's good.
It was quite different to how, I don't know, my father rings me up once a month, or I ring him. Dad retired at 58, and about once a month he asks me when I'm going to retire, and I say to him, no, I'm not retiring, Dad, I've got far too much to do. And it's my plan. I have a mentor, and I guess part of what we're talking about tonight is inspired by my mentor, a guy called Fred Gross. And I asked him, I said, how come you're still doing this? And he said, he's over 80, and he says, I'm probably going to continue doing this until I'm about 100, Tony. He says, when are you going to retire? And it kind of stopped me. And he said, my goal for you is that you're still doing this at 80. And it's kind of, and we just got to find a way to make it work for you. He says, there's too much life to live to actually step back and go into retirement. We need, and the life that I want to live, and the lives that we all want to live, there's too much going on to step back and get out of life. The Retirement Commissioner, I think, is telling a whole pack of lies. He's saying that we can't afford to live, and we need to save piles of money. Well, I want to live now, which means that I'm going to have to keep going for quite a long time. So I've got to find a way to do that, and some of these examples tonight are reasons to carry on and reasons to move forward. So there's a lot of other people that are telling you that you can't do what you're going to do. It could be your family, could be your lawyer, could be your suppliers. All sorts of people are going to tell you that you can't do what these people are doing. Well, you can. This house here is a fella, Dave and Rhonda. They've done a fair bit of business with us, these two. I'm not sure how many, 3 houses that we've bought and sold for them. And Dave came to me, we sold this house. They've changed their life completely. He's a reasonably successful businessman. He's a very successful businessman. He's probably going to listen to this later. And owns a trucking company. And so we sold this house. He brought a partner into his business. They paid off the batch that they have up north, which is right on the water up at Whangatio, and bought an apartment at Kensington Garden at Orewa. So they've done, they really changed things around. These two guys, both of them, you can kind of look at them and say, well, they're successful New Zealanders. They've done really quite well. Some of the examples tonight that we're going to look at are quite ordinary people who again have looked at how they're structured in Auckland and have decided to move on. These people are sort of classic property investors. I love these people to bits. They're a real estate agent's dream, but they have quite a different way of putting together their property portfolio. Over the last 10 years, they've established a property portfolio around New Zealand, and they did that while living in a motorhome. So I sold this property to them maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I think. And again, they came to me about 6 months ago to sell because they'd found their dream home and they had wanted to create a new life. Now, this is where they bought. They bought at Tairua. They're on the water, and they can tell their own story. So why did you buy this?
Walked in the door, looked at the view, felt this amazing calmness around the place, and quite frankly, I didn't need to look at the rest of the house. I was sold. It was the easiest sale ever. Yeah.
And how long,
Never
how long have you been living in Tairua?
13 months. After a lifetime in Auckland and having set friends there that you built up over years, coming down here probably should have been a wrench. Never noticed it. We, in the first month or so of moving here, we have a set of the most fabulous good friends. We can walk down the street and chat to virtually everyone. You know, I like that community thing. I like feeling part of it and feeling cared for. You're kind of coddled a bit here by the community. They do look after you very well. I sold the house for $950 in Auckland. I wanted to do that to freehold this, and also give me a lesser value Auckland. Well, actually.
So you got
a rental property as an investment, yeah.
So you sold your house in Auckland, $950, bought a rental property up there, freeholded this, and this cost less. I'm stunned. It's just quite a lot less than what you paid up in Auckland.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you get
waterfront.
more bang for your buck here. That's for real. Yeah. And who wouldn't want to live here? You know, if you don't have to work in Auckland. You don't actually have to live in Auckland. And I'm not being derogatory of Auckland. I love Auckland. As a city, it's great. It's the traffic I can't stand.
Yeah. I really like these two women. They're great. They're a great couple. The key thing, the house is beautiful. It's waterfront, and I'm amazed at what they managed to achieve down there. They've set it up as an Airbnb. Key things about those guys is that they really reduced their living expenses, got that really way down. They just so they got their living expenses down. They changed the way that they were doing things, and they're quite innovative in their approach to in the way that they have built a property portfolio, the way that they have built an income for themselves. They've been quite innovative in that. They've been ready to change things, and at the end of the day, they've recycled the equity from those for two of those rental properties, purchased that home down in Tairua, and bought another rental property up north. Now, equally, we've got Rosalie here. Rosalie had a big family home just up the hill here in Prospect Terrace, and she refuses to be pigeonholed. She makes her own decisions and lives her own life. So, and wanted some money to be able to help her family and live her life. So we sold this family home, half price, moved her into an apartment in Birkenhead. Now, 150 square metre apartment. It's beautiful. The bowling club is right next door, and her kids are just around the corner. Right now, she's down in Wellington. She's travelling. She's a very happy lady. That property was half the cost, and probably, but it's not just the cost of the apartment that came down, it's her living expenses and the whole lifestyle and energy that she's able to put into her own life was quite different here. This lady here, I guess you could say, is the disgruntled public servant. We sold her house. She moved down to Katikati. We actually sold the house. She quit her job with as I say, with the government. She came to me and she says, "What do I do now?" And it's just a home in Glenfield and Spinella Drive. What do I do now? So we suggested that she try Katikati. This place is double glazed, brick and tile, low maintenance, brand new, moving out of a second-hand house, single, cold, drafty. It's quite a different home. Hi Debbie, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
How come you moved down here from Auckland?
Well, it was a bit of a leap of faith. I knew no one down here, so it was a bit of a choice. But I was tired of Auckland. I was tired of the hassle and the traffic and the having no time for anything. And I started looking, Warkworth and beyond, but, that was really out of my price range.
Yeah.
So I thought, and then I had this very good friend called Tony White, and his wife Pip was on the money, and she said to me, "Have you thought of Athenry?" So I went and looked at Athenry, and to be honest, I didn't think much of it. It didn't have a community. So then I came down the road a little further to Katikati, and oh my goodness, what a lovely place. Well, for a start, it's a brand new house. Well, when I say brand new, it was 6 months old when I bought it. So it's double glazed, it's new, it's got all LED lights in it, cheap electricity, and it's in a lovely community full of other people who are new to Katikati. So we're all new together. People know each other on the street. Everyone knows everybody else and what they're up to, and how's your grandson, and how's this, and how's that. And it's just lovely down here. It's the best decision I've ever made in my life. You've got everything down here, but you've got peace and quiet and serenity, and it's just relaxing, and boy, it's like, this still exists in New Zealand. It's like, you know, the little piece of paradise still exists in New Zealand. You've just got to go looking for it.
And how did you find your real estate experience in Auckland with Harcourts?
Well, I had this strange bloke called Tony White, you know, and he was a bit of a worry. And I told him when I first met him that I thought he was a bit of a shark, and he didn't take that too well. So he set out to change my ideas about it, and my goodness, what a wonderful job he did for me. Oh, and he's actually not a shark at all.
His wife's all right too.
Yeah, his wife's pretty good, and she writes great prose.
So we've got one more example, and this is Steve and Debbie. These guys, they dreamed their lifestyle and then set about creating it. So they've sold their Glenfield property. They freeholded their country lifestyle. They have a bolt hole here in just up the road here in Milford, which they use for Auckland residents. And over the last few years, they've also built up a property portfolio with 2 investment properties. The key thing about Steve is both Steve and Debbie are bankers. Usually bankers are fairly conservative people, and Steve changed the way he was thinking. He changed and was quite innovative in his to find something that would carry him into the future. He went into a niche into a growth industry, which is health and safety, and then found a niche in that, which is dangerous goods compliance consultant. He's now one of a handful of people that is certified in New Zealand to consult on dangerous goods. And so it's quite a different sort of a role that he got, and he gets to travel around New Zealand and do things. They were dreamers. He dreamed of a different sort of a life, and went forward on it. Very, very few of our people tonight are retiring. They are reducing their impact, I guess. They're reducing their stuff and their expenses. They're spending much more time on experiences than what they are on stuff. They have reused and repurposed themselves, so they've taken the skills that they have. Steve's a really good example of somebody, what's the relationship with being a banker and being a dangerous goods consultant? And Steve is really good at systems. He's really good at getting systems down, and then really good at teaching people how to follow those systems. That was what his role was in the banking industry. That's what his role is with dangerous goods. All of these people have recycled their Auckland property. Auckland's been very, very kind to us, baby boomers. It's been fabulous. And we've all developed these homes which got a lot of equity tied up in them, and they've all recycled their equity to create something quite new. They've all done it to get health and wealth and more time in their lives, and being able to move forward. One of the things we're ending up with a lot of these people, there's a lot of cash floating around, and some have invested into property management, others are putting it into funds. If you do decide to leave town, I do recommend that you try before you buy. You never know what Raglan is like in the middle of winter until you've been to Raglan in the middle of winter, or Whangamata in the middle of summer. Go there, but go and try out those places. If you are selling a house at the moment on the North Shore, There's a whole bunch of fake news in the newspapers at the moment, which you can read. But if you decide that you're going to sell on the North Shore at the moment, we have a 72% sell-through rate. So these are the stats that we've got. So it doesn't seem to make much difference whether you're in Milford or Forest Hill or Castor Bay. Right now, 72% of the houses that we take to the market are sold within a 90-day period. If you compare that with 12 months ago, maybe 12 months ago, Charlie, it would be 85%. We'd be hitting 85s and 90s. So at that time, maybe a year ago, all you had to do was stick a sign out in front of your house on the front lawn saying for sale, and somebody buy your house. Today, you really do need to maybe get some good advice. Thanks, Ian. That's what you should be expecting. There's a reason. People say, why aren't houses selling? And I'm going to touch on that in a minute, on why a house might not sell. At the moment, if you're looking in the same three suburbs, that's these suburbs around here, it's more or less the same right across the North Shore, and I'm very happy to give you the figures for your suburb if you're not in those areas. We're really running between about 35 to 45% over the CV. So if you just want to get a rule of thumb about what your house might be worth, the CV, add 30 to 40% and you should be more or less right. At the moment, obviously I do a lot of auctions. I've been selling houses since 1998. Auction is how I do things. This is quite interesting at the moment. We check our figures. You can see that if you're selling by auction, the number of days taken to sell a house on average is 23 days. If you sell a house with any other method of sale, like priced, it's about 40 days. And those figures before about being over the CV, auction is generally delivering about 44% over the CV, priced sales on average 36% over the CV. So that's right across the whole market. And it's not just right across the whole market. If you look at all of the figures with the likes of Barfoot and Thompson and Ray White or Bailey's, you'll see that we do better. Harcourt's is much better than those companies, but you'll see the same sorts of figures coming through. Auction is not right for every house, and it's not right for everybody. And part of the reason for that is that it's 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it didn't really matter whether a house was, the law has changed, the banks have changed. It's to do with earthquakes and natural forces that have been damaging houses. So if you are thinking about selling your house, if that's something that you've got planning for the next 12 or a couple of years or something like that, then you really do need to make sure that your paperwork is in order now. So if you go to your lawyer and you say to your lawyer, look, we're going to sell next year, or you could come to me and say, look, we're thinking of selling next year, or go to any real estate agent, what they should be telling you is to make sure that your building consents and your code compliance certificates are all up to date. The title on your property is okay. So especially if you're on a cross-leased property, you want to be looking at whether the cross-lease documents, the lease documents are all up to date, and that your house is what's on the title. The biggest fish hook that we get in selling a house is where the documentation isn't quite right. I don't know if that makes sense to you. If you go and see a lawyer and say, look, we're thinking about selling a house, can you check the title? If you go to the council and draw down your property file or get a LIM report or ask your real estate agent to get a LIM report before you hit the market. If you're preparing your house for the market, I always say three things: clean, 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 tidy, 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 and declutter. That's about it, really. You can do some maintenance, do basic maintenance, but don't get too wrapped up in making major changes unless you've bought the house to make a profit out of. One last very short story. A few years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, I met this lady, Barbara. And Barbara was a real estate agent working in our Birkenhead office. And she'd been there for quite some time, and she'd been selling houses for a long time. And I said to Barbara, Barbara, how come you are still selling real estate? Now, she must have been, I don't know how old.
About 76 then.
She was, she's reasonably. But seriously, so she turns around and says to me, Tony, I'm going to go to Buenos Aires and go tango dancing next month. And there's nothing that I want to wish better for anybody that's here today, that's the life that you want to lead. Avoid retirement if you possibly can. Don't go there. Keep doing it. And keep doing it because you want to go to Buenos Aires and go tango dancing. There she is. I rang her up the other day to tell her I was going to use her picture. She just laughed. She says, you've got great legs, Barb.